Hey guys, Miss Gregory here. I'm giving you a Chapter 6 review video for all of the lessons in our workbook, Chapter 6 Expression. So this is lesson 6.1 through 6.7. You'll want to have your workbook handy. Actually, you'll want volume 2. This is a picture of volume 1, but get the correct one. You will need a notebook paper and something to write with, preferably a pencil. If you're taking notes, a pen is fine. You may want to do notebook paper, or you may want to write this straight in your math notebook, but I will be checking to see that you took all of the notes from this video. So make sure you have all of your supplies ready and then move on. Okay, we're taking a look back at reviewing with exponents, and you need to know, in this case I pointed out that the 3, the smaller number, there is the exponent, and the larger number, the 4, is the base. The exponent tells you how many times to multiply the base. So to work this problem, 4 to the third power, or 4 cubed, you would say 4 times 4 times 4. So we're going to start out with 4 times 4 is 16, and then 16 times 4 is 64. Be careful and review questions with fractions with an exponent and decimals with an exponent. It will not necessarily just be whole numbers. So you can see example 5 here is showing 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. And multiplying fractions was done in chapter 2, so we have already taught how to do this. You just have to remember it. If you look at the guided examples, example D is a decimal, so you would say for D, this would be written 2.1 times 2.1. Then you're going to have to make sure that as you're solving this, you multiply and you set this up just like you're multiplying whole numbers. And hopefully I'll have enough room. Don't put anything there or put a 0. And then you've got a 2 and you've got a 4, and you would add that up. Okay, so I'm ending up with a 3 with 2 plus 2 and with a 4, and I need a total of, oh, I see my mistake here. I've looked at that incorrectly. Let me go back here, because this would be a 1 plus 0, a 2 plus 2, and then the 4 there. And then I have 1 decimal place and 1 decimal place, so I need a total of 2 decimal places here. 1, start from the back, and 2 decimal places. So that final answer for D would be 4.41, 4 and 4100. So make sure you practice whole numbers, decimals, and fractions. The procedure is the same. You multiply the base however many times the exponent tells you. And remember, this is all multiplication. Don't get confused with adding. Okay? Once you've written everything down and done some practice, then you may move on when you're ready. If not, pause the video here. Okay, and we're looking at our order of operations, PEMDAS. This page was reviewed in the book. Here are the rules. It's important to note that the number 3 and number 4 rule are reminding you that you multiply and divide in order from left to right, meaning whatever operation is to the left, if divide is on the left, you would do it first. Add and subtract from left to right. Again, just like reading a book, you're going to move from left to right. So if subtract comes before addition, you'll subtract first. Those are the tricky ones that seem to get you guys confused. The ones that go in order, you know what to do. Again, just be careful with the exponents. Okay? Parentheses first, then do all the exponents, then multiply and divide from left to right, add and subtract from left to right. Here is some practice pages from our workbook. You don't have to work all of these, but these are some good practice problems that will be similar to what you'll see on the test. I've worked number 21 for you, and I have a final answer of 35. Notice that I had to go for the exponents first. 6 times 6 is 36. Then I needed to do the division. So 36 divided by 4 is 9. Last is the addition, and 26 plus 9 is 35. And this is how you should be showing me your steps and your work when you're solving these on your quizzes, tests, and homework as well. Okay, so make sure one of the strategies was to look at the problem and decide what needed to be done first. Like in 22, you would do the exponents first because I don't see any parentheses. Then I need to look, and I'm going to multiply and divide from left to right. Divide comes before multiply, so in that case it would switch. So those numbers on top of the expression are reminding me the order, and then I start working on the calculations for my problem. That's a strategy that may help you. Okay, remember the odd numbers. You can check the answers in the back of your book, so those might be good for practice problems to study for the test. Once you've copied everything down on this page and you're ready to move on, you may go ahead. Otherwise, pause here. And again, this goes into lesson 6.3, which has you using variables in the expressions, and you have to learn to substitute a value for the variable and then solve using your PEMDAS steps. So you should be substituting the value and solving using PEMDAS. And all of this involves you showing me your steps. So notice that on number 19 for this page, they have shown you the steps. This is how you should be showing me your work, like they did for 19. You're substituting. If you look back in the directions, it says evaluate, which you know means to solve. Evaluate each expression if. And you have a lot of problems, and you're going to refer to the m equals 2, the n equals 16, and the g equals 1/5. So be careful with the fraction. Okay. So I'll pause the video, I'll do one of these for you, show you the steps, and you can come back and check. You do as many as you need to practice this, and remember the odds are in the back of the book. Okay, I wanted to come back and show you 26, and before I finished it, I'll show you my last step here. Notice that I substituted 1/5 for the value of g, and since it's g squared, or g to the second power, I'm going to be substituting 1/5 times 1/5, and I need to do the parentheses first according to PEMDAS. So 1/5 times 1/5 is 1/25. Now I need to multiply the fraction times 50, so notice I put it 50 over 1 because it's easier to multiply a fraction times a fraction. And I'm going to use another color here to remind you that these are ones and they cancel out. And then we can look at the 50 and the 25, and I can find a common factor. 25 will go into 25 one whole time. 25 will go into 50 two whole times. So I'm left with the answer of 2 over 1. So my final answer for 26 is an answer of 2. Again, practice with the odds, and you can check those in the back of the book. If you're ready, move on. If not, pause here. Now this is the guided practice that goes with lesson 6.4. Lesson 6.4 was practicing all of the key words that you would replace with a mathematical operation. So there are keywords to tell you to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And we made a list of these, and they're in your workbook. You also watched a video. They're in your notebook if you kept the notes like you're supposed to. So you definitely want to make sure that you have the correct answer for number 2 and for number 3. Hint, hint, because you will see something very similar on your test for these where you will need to know how to do this. Now, we've done these and we've answered them in class, so you should have the correct answer for these. And I want you to try it out, and we can check in together tomorrow if you have questions on any of these. You should have plenty of examples from the book and your notes already. Okay? When you're ready, when you've practiced, move on. If not, pause here and wait till you're done. Okay, we've done this problem 10 before. I want to make note of the fact that this says find the error, because this is the common error that people make. I had you write in your notes that less than and the words fewer than, you guys always remember that they mean to subtract. That's easy. But we had to learn that they also mean subtract and switch. So you're going to replace less than with the subtraction. You're going to replace fewer than with the subtraction symbol. But what you have to also remember, subtract and switch, or flip-flop it, however you remember it. But this means this girl did the problem wrong, because as soon as she sees less than, she should know to subtract. And I tell you to make sure you put the number that's in the front automatically goes to the back. And less than a number, which we're just going to call n, should move to the front. And the order matters, especially with subtraction. You must subtract and switch. So the correct answer should be n minus 5. She put them in the wrong order. Okay, once you've copied this down, move on. You, again, have already been assigned this work before a quiz, but I'm bringing your attention to it. This workbook, page 472, is a mid-chapter check. It is good to review and know how to do all of these problems for testing. And so look back and check your work, and then move on. Okay, also, lesson 6.5, knowing the properties, is important. You are expected to know commutative property, which we talked about is changing the order, CO, just like the first two letters in commutative. You also need to know associative property, which I said think about social groupings, and the numbers inside the parentheses are changing. Okay, identity property we've also talked about, meaning the number doesn't lose its identity. We're talking about that happens when you multiply by 1 and when you add 0. And there are examples here, and we have others from our notes and our notes in the workbook. And we've done a lot of the Kahoot quiz reviews with these types of examples that you could go back to. Okay, but you must know these, be able to identify them, recognize them, and explain if two expressions are equivalent, then tell me which property proves this. Okay, and we've done examples like this in class. We're going to move on. If you need to copy, then pause. Okay, here are some great test practice questions. These power-up test practice questions are going to be similar to what you're going to see on your quarterly check for quarter 3, and more importantly, the FSA. They will be questions on the computer. They will have the harder questions like this one here, number 31, select all that apply. Select all that apply means you don't know how many are correct. It could be one, it could be two, it could be all of them, and they will not give any partial credit. So you must make sure you pay attention so that you get your points on these types of problems. 31 and 32 are both good test practice questions, so let's take a look at these. Okay, the table shows the number of desks in the classroom at 3 different schools. Which expressions represent the total number of desks? And you must select all that apply. Okay, I had to pause and I went ahead and worked the problem, so now you can check the answers. 31, you can see the 3 that were selected. All of those, no matter how you work it, you would get a total of 900 desks. You can check it out for yourself. For 32, this would be like a drag and drop on the computer, but you have to determine if expressions are equivalent, and if they are yes equivalent, you have to tell me which property proves it. So again, we've talked about these. You can read my answers there, and once you're ready, move on. If not, pause and wait. Okay, distributive property, this is lesson 6.6. It's very important. We've took some time with this to talk about distribute, and notice that these blue arrows are going through here. Sometimes we talked about people wanted to do the arrows this way because it looked like a rainbow. And then you would remember to do the rainbow, which means to multiply, whatever way works for you. Some people like to draw one arrow under the bottom and then draw the other arrow over the top. As long as you distribute correctly, which is multiplying everything, all of the terms inside the parentheses, you're fine. Okay, but this again is how the distributive property is typically set up, an example with numbers and an example with variables. This example 1 here is with a mixed number to help you solve it mentally. That's probably not the most important way. I want to make sure you know the distributive property, but you do need to be aware of it. When you're ready, move on. Distributive property, again, power up test practice. The odds are always in the back of the book for you to check, but if you have not worked these, do that now and come back and check your answer, because you will have questions similar to this. Which multiple choice item shows the correct use of distributive property? So be ready for those types of multiple choice questions on your test. Okay, you can see here I tried to show my steps for the distributive property on 33. So I have the blue arrows showing the rainbow that I multiplied 3 times x, plus I multiplied 3 times 2. So my simplified answer would be 3x plus 6. So the distributive property was used correctly for B and C, but it was not used correctly for A and D. Notice the word problem 34. Sometimes the mistake is reading Toby and 3 friends and forgetting about Toby. But Toby is one person plus 3 friends, so 1 plus 3, Toby plus 3 means a total of 4 people ate lunch together at the deli. Each of those 4 people ordered a sandwich and a drink. So you can see that I filled in the blanks there. And off to the side, I just showed you that you could add up the total of sandwich plus drink, which gives you a nice even number to work with, $4. And then 4 people times $4, they spent a total of $16. Okay? When you're ready, move on. This is our last lesson that's covered in your chapter test. This is lesson 6-7 on simplifying expressions by combining like terms. So there's some vocabulary that's very important here that we've used a lot in class. Sorry. Make sure we have done this in class, but you definitely want to make sure that these are listed as the terms per the definition. This is your constant, just plain old number without a variable attached. And these are like terms, meaning they're alike and we're allowed to combine them. The coefficient you need to know, and also you need to know how many terms are listed. In this case, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 terms are listed. You also need to be aware that just a number x always has a coefficient in front. It's the number 1. So if we were adding 3x plus x, we're really adding 3x plus 1x, which is a total of 4x. But don't forget, when you are listing all of the coefficients, that in this case there is a coefficient of 1 in front of the x. Word problem was actually done in class, and we talked about if you literally made a basket that held 3 apples and 1 pear, that you could then take that visual and make over here where they've used distributive property, your parentheses is like your basket that has 3 apples for every 1 pear. You have to keep that ratio. And then since you are buying 5 baskets, you're able to multiply that set by 5. So through using your distributive property, you would have a total of 15 apples and 5 pears. We also went over these answers in class. We said that this was distributive property. You needed to multiply 5 times 6. We said here in number 2, you needed to circle the like terms and put them in parentheses. So 2x plus 7x plus 5y. So now we have our like terms together, and we now have, that doesn't look neat, 9x plus 5y is my final answer. And here, of course, we would need to distribute correctly to get 4 times 2x is 8x, plus 4 times 5y is 20y. When you've copied this, move on. And we've done some examples where you need to first identify and circle the like terms, color code if necessary. I've done some examples here for you. We've done a whole worksheet together in class, so you've had a lot of practice with this, including your weekly worksheet. So take a look at these, check your answers, and of course you can do more of the odds on your own. I'm going to move on. You will have a test question like this. If you were not with us to go over this in class, this is the Power Up test practice, and you need to make sure you do this problem correctly. It will most definitely be as a quarterly check, as an FSA question, and I'm telling you right now, it is on your test. So let's make sure you have the correct answers here. I'm going to pause and come back with the correct answers while you try this on your own. Okay, please check your answers and make sure you have everything listed. Notice it says list all of the terms. If you're missing one, it would be incorrect. List the like terms. It's only the variables in this case. Notice tricky, the coefficients. You need to list all of the coefficients. So I've shown you off to the side why it's 3, 5, and 1. That's the tricky part. The only constant, complete, alone number is 2. And then you've got like terms of 3n plus 1n gives you 4n. Nothing else could be combined, so you see your final simplified answer. and we'll move on to the next page. We will be working on this some in class, but there is a lot of vocabulary that you need to know in Chapter 6, and working this crossword puzzle with the definitions will help you. So this is something we'll be working on, as well as page 506 at the bottom. You have to match the expression with the equivalent expression. So the numbers on the left need to match with the letters on the right, and they are often tricky, and you might have something left over in your list. Okay, again, if you have questions, we will talk about these in class. And goodbye. All right, bye guys. Study hard.